Deep in the bowels of the Galactic Military Assessment Council's most intimidating facility, General Vextar stood before a holographic display showing casualty statistics that would make a seasoned warlord weep. His four eyes gleamed with sadistic satisfaction as he adjusted his ceremonial battle armor, which hadn't seen actual combat since the Great Cafeteria Uprising of 2387. "Gentlemen," he announced to his assembled council, his voice carrying the dramatic weight of someone who practiced this speech in the mirror, "today we witness the breaking of yet another species' military spirit." Admiral Krakthos, whose species resembled what would happen if a praying mantis decided to hit the gym for 3 decades, clicked his mandibles in amusement. "The humans, you mean? Oh, this should be delightful. I've reviewed their files. They're still using projectile weapons and chemical propulsion. How charmingly primitive." "Indeed." Vextar purred, pulling up footage of human military exercises. "Look at them. They actually run in formation for fun. They call it jogging. Can you imagine? Voluntary physical exertion without the threat of immediate death." The council chamber erupted in alien laughter, a sound that could best be described as a symphony of dying air conditioners mixed with the occasional dolphin having an existential crisis. "I've designed the perfect assessment for these adorable little saplings," Krakthos continued, his compound eyes practically sparkling with glee. "The Omega Protocol, zero-gravity combat scenarios, toxic atmosphere survival, and 72 hours of sleep deprivation challenges. Most species surrender within the first 6 hours. The record holder lasted 18 hours before curling up in a corner and sobbing for their parental units. Marvelous." Vextar rubbed his hands together. "And the betting pool, currently running 3-to-1 odds on complete human breakdown within 4 hours. The optimists are betting on 6 hours, but frankly I think they're being generous." The massive doors to the assessment facility hissed open, and 3 figures walked in with the kind of casual confidence that suggested they'd either seen everything, or were too tired to care. Captain Jake Bulldog Murphy led the group, his weathered face carrying the expression of a man who'd been through military bureaucracy and lived to tell about it. Behind him, Sergeant Rita Tank Rodriguez cracked her knuckles with the enthusiasm of someone who'd been sitting in a transport ship for too long. Corporal Tommy Spark Williams brought up the rear, already surveying the facility with the keen eye of someone calculating blast patterns and structural weak points. "Ah, our test subjects have arrived," Vextar announced, his voice booming across the chamber. "Welcome humans, to your assessment. I do hope you've said your goodbyes." Captain Murphy glanced around the intimidating facility, took in the ominous lighting, the dramatic architecture, and the aliens practically vibrating with anticipation. He turned to his team, then back to the council. "So," he said with the tone of someone ordering coffee, "is there a gift shop or do we get straight to the disappointing you part?" General Vextar's 4 eyes narrowed simultaneously, a feat that would have been impressive if it weren't so utterly wasted on the unimpressed humans before him. He gestured dramatically toward a holographic display that materialized with enough smoke and lighting effects to make a rock concert jealous. "Behold," he declared, his voice rising to theatrical heights, "the Omega Protocol, the most grueling military assessment in galactic history. Phase 1. Zero-gravity combat against our most skilled warriors in an environment that will disorient and nauseate you beyond comprehension." Sergeant Rodriguez yawned audibly. "Oh good, I was getting tired of regular gravity anyway. Gets boring after a while." Vextar's dramatic pause was thoroughly ruined, but he pressed on. "Phase 2. Survival in a toxic atmosphere that has claimed the lives of countless warriors. The very air will burn your lungs while you attempt to complete complex military objectives." "Define toxic," Corporal Williams interjected, pulling out a small notepad with the casual interest of someone checking a grocery list. "Sulfur dioxide, methane, trace amounts of chlorine gas," Admiral Krakthos rattled off proudly. Williams scribbled something down and showed it to Murphy, who squinted at it and nodded approvingly. "Tuesday in Detroit. Got it." The Alien Council exchanged worried glances. This wasn't going according to the script. "Phase 3, Vextar continued, his voice now carrying a slight edge of desperation. 72 hours of continuous operation with zero sleep. Your minds will fracture, your bodies will betray you, and your spirit will break like glass against the rocks of impossibility." Captain Murphy checked his watch, a battered piece of Earth technology that had seen more action than most alien warships. 72 hours, you said. That's cute. Rodriguez, didn't we just finish a 96-hour exercise before we got on the transport? 98 hours, actually, Rodriguez corrected. But who's counting? I was hoping to catch up on some reading anyway. The betting pool in the observation deck above suddenly became very, very quiet. Admiral Krakthos felt his mandibles twitch involuntarily. Perhaps, he suggested with growing uncertainty, you'd like to reconsider. There's no shame in admitting when a challenge is beyond your capabilities. The three humans exchanged looks. Captain Murphy's expression shifted to something that might have been sympathy if it weren't so thoroughly laced with sarcasm. You know what? Sure thing, Admiral. We'll give your little test a shot. But just so we're clear, this is the hard stuff, right? Not like a warm-up exercise before the real assessment. The zero-gravity combat chamber activated with a mechanical whir that sounded like impending doom, if impending doom had been designed by committee and required regular maintenance. 6 of the galaxy's most elite warriors floated into position, their combat suits bristling with enough weaponry to level a small moon. In the observation deck, General Vexstar rubbed his hands together with the glee of someone about to witness a spectacular failure. Watch carefully, gentlemen. This is where the humans learn that real combat isn't like their primitive Hollywood movies. The gravity shut off. What happened next would be discussed in military academies for decades, though mostly in the context of what not to expect when testing humans. Instead of the anticipated flailing and disorientation, Sergeant Rodriguez immediately executed a perfect barrel roll, grabbed onto a ceiling fixture, and launched herself at the nearest alien warrior with the enthusiasm of someone who'd just discovered their favorite childhood playground was still open. Woohoo! She shouted, using the poor creature as a springboard to ricochet off 3 walls and somehow end up behind 2 more opponents. It's like the world's most violent jungle gym. Corporal Williams, meanwhile, had apparently decided that zero-gravity combat was prime entertainment material. Ladies and gentlemen, he announced in his best sports commentator voice while casually dodging plasma fire, we have Rodriguez coming around the outside with a beautiful double-twist body slam. The crowd goes wild. He punctuated this by catching a thrown weapon, spinning it like a baton, and somehow managing to use it to pole vault over his attacker's head. Captain Murphy, displaying the kind of tactical brilliance that comes from years of making the impossible look routine, had figured out how to use the chamber's ventilation system to his advantage. He was literally surfing air currents, moving through the zero-gravity environment like he'd been born in it. This is actually pretty relaxing, he called out, while simultaneously disarming 2 opponents. Kind of like underwater demolition, but with better lighting and less hypothermia. In the observation deck, Admiral Krakthos's compound eyes were beginning to vibrate with what could only be described as existential dread. They're enjoying this. Impossible, Vexstar muttered, though his voice lacked its earlier confidence. No species enjoys the Omega Protocol. It's scientifically impossible. Below them, Sergeant Rodriguez had somehow managed to start a conga line with 3 defeated alien warriors while still actively fighting the other 3. Corporal Williams was now providing color commentary for her moves. And there she goes with the devastating tickle attack. Oh, that's got to hurt, folks. Wait, no, the alien's laughing. This is unprecedented. The betting pool had gone from excited chatter to stunned silence. Several aliens were frantically checking their atmospheric readings, convinced that the humans must be high on some unknown substance. Captain Murphy, having successfully confused his final opponent into surrender by asking him about his weekend plans mid-combat, floated over to the observation window and gave a little wave. Hey General, this is pretty fun, but when does the actual test start? The toxic atmosphere chamber sealed with a hiss that sounded like the last breath of hope leaving General Vexstar's thoroughly demoralized body. Banks of monitors displayed atmospheric readings that would make a hazmat team weep. Sulfur dioxide at levels that could strip paint, methane concentrations that would make a landfill jealous, and enough chlorine gas to sanitize a small city. Phase 2 commencing, Admiral Krakthos announced, his voice now carrying the desperate edge of someone whose carefully laid plans were unraveling faster than a cheap sweater. Atmospheric contamination at maximum toxicity, breathing apparatus distributed. The humans accepted their breathing gear with the casual interest of people being handed complimentary peanuts on a flight. Captain Murphy examined his mask with the critical eye of someone who'd seen military equipment before and found it wanting. You know, he said conversationally. These look suspiciously like the ones we used in basic training. The ones that always broke during the worst possible moment. As if summoned by his words, Sergeant Rodriguez's breathing apparatus chose that exact moment to develop a suspicious crack along its main seal. Warning lights began blinking frantically. Oh look, she said with the tone of someone whose Tuesday had just become mildly more interesting. Mine's broken. What are the odds? In the observation deck, several aliens leaned forward with predatory anticipation. This was it. This was where the humans would finally break, gasping and choking on the toxic atmosphere while begging for mercy. Rodriguez examined her broken mask, shrugged with the nonchalance of someone who dealt with worse equipment failures, and casually tossed it aside. Guess I'll just hold my breath then, she announced, taking a deep breath and diving into the toxic cloud like it was a particularly unpleasant swimming pool. The aliens' jaws dropped, several literally fell out of their chairs. "She can't do that," Admiral Krakthus whispered, his mandibles clicking frantically. "The atmospheric pressure alone should incapacitate her. The chemical burns to her respiratory system should be immediate and severe." Corporal Williams, apparently deciding that solidarity was more important than breathing apparatus, removed his mask as well. "You know what? These things fog up anyway. Makes it hard to see the mission objectives." He took a casual breath of the toxic atmosphere and continued walking through the obstacle course like he was strolling through a park on a slightly smoggy day. "Interesting bouquet," he commented thoughtfully. "Notes of industrial accident with hints of dumpster fire. Reminds me of that chemical plant we had to infiltrate in Belarus. At least this one doesn't have the added bonus of radioactive fallout." Captain Murphy, watching his team casually navigate what was supposed to be a lethal environment, finally sighed and removed his own breathing apparatus. "Well, if we're doing this the hard way again. Rodriguez, how long can you hold your breath?" "Current personal record is 11 minutes and 37 seconds, she replied without even sounding winded. "But I was underwater for that one. This is just Tuesday in LA during fire season." The toxic atmosphere that was supposed to be burning their lungs seemed to be having roughly the same effect as mildly spicy food. Rodriguez had started doing jumping jacks to pass the time, apparently using the exercise to regulate her breathing. Williams was methodically working his way through the mission objectives while providing a running commentary on the facility's structural engineering. "You know," Williams said, examining a wall panel, "whoever designed this place has never heard of proper ventilation. You've got dead air pockets everywhere. No wonder the toxic atmosphere lingers. A few strategically placed fans would clear this out in no time." In the observation deck, General Vextar's 4 eyes were now twitching in unison. "How?" he whispered. "How are they not dying?" Captain Murphy, apparently having decided that the toxic atmosphere was more of a minor inconvenience than a deadly threat, had started planning improvements to the facility's layout. "You know what this place needs? Better lighting. And maybe some motivational posters. Really brighten up the whole deadly military assessments vibe you've got going." Admiral Krakthus was frantically checking his atmospheric readings, convinced that somehow the toxic levels had mysteriously dropped. They hadn't. If anything, they were slightly higher than normal. "Sir," Rodriguez called out cheerfully, "should we start the betting pool now?" "I've got $20, says Williams can hold his breath longer than the facility's air recycling system can maintain these toxicity levels. The betting pool among the aliens had gone from excited wagering to stunned silence. Several species were taking notes, apparently trying to figure out what kind of deathworld could possibly produce beings who treated their ultimate military assessment like a mildly inconvenient afternoon jog. The sleep deprivation chamber was General Vextar's personal masterpiece of psychological warfare. Harsh strobing lights designed to prevent REM sleep, discordant audio frequencies that triggered anxiety responses in 97% of known species, and temperature fluctuations that would make a broken thermostat jealous. The coup de grace was a series of complex military scenarios that required split-second decision-making while operating on zero rest. 72 hours, Admiral Krakthos announced with the desperation of someone whose last hope was about to be crushed by reality. No sleep, no rest, no mercy. The humans entered the chamber, with the casual demeanor of people checking into a slightly disappointing hotel room. Captain Murphy immediately began examining the strobing lights with professional interest. "Oh, these are cute," he said, squinting at the pulsing illumination. "Reminds me of that nightclub in Kandahar, where we had to extract the ambassador's nephew. Except those lights were actually synchronized to music." Sergeant Rodriguez had already claimed a corner and was unpacking what appeared to be a small arsenal of snacks from her tactical vest. "Anyone want some beef jerky? I've got the good stuff from that place in Texas. Figured we might get hungry during whatever this is supposed to be." "Actually," Corporal Williams said, settling down with the contentment of someone who'd found the perfect reading spot, "this lighting might be better than what we had on the transport. At least it's consistent. Remember those flickering emergency lights that kept shorting out?" In the observation deck, Admiral Krakthos was checking his chronometer with the obsessive frequency of someone watching their career implode in real time. "It's been 6 hours. They should be showing signs of fatigue by now." Instead, the humans appeared to be treating the sleep deprivation chamber like a 24-hour diner, with really aggressive ambiance. Rodriguez had somehow managed to start a card game using military supply requisition forms as playing cards. Williams was teaching the facility's AI system a series of increasingly complex card tricks, apparently having befriended the computer through what could only be described as aggressive technical support. "You know what your problem is," Williams was saying to the AI. his voice carrying the patient tone of someone explaining technology to their grandmother. "You're trying too hard. Card tricks are about misdirection, not computational complexity. Watch this." He proceeded to demonstrate a card trick so elaborate that even the facility's security cameras seemed to be following along with rapt attention. Captain Murphy, meanwhile, had appointed himself as the facility's unofficial efficiency consultant. "See, this whole sleep deprivation thing would work better if you had some actual mental challenges. Maybe some strategic planning exercises. Real-time tactical scenarios. This is just atmospheric irritation." He gestured at the strobing lights and discordant audio. "It's like someone designed this based on what they thought would be annoying, rather than what would actually test military readiness." By hour 18, the aliens in the observation deck were showing more signs of exhaustion than the humans. General Vextar had developed a nervous tic in his third eye, and Admiral Krakthos was stress-eating whatever the mantis equivalent of comfort food was. "They're not even tired," Vextar whispered in horror. "Look at them. They're organizing recreational activities." Indeed, Rodriguez had convinced the facility's automated defense systems to participate in what appeared to be a rousing game of 20 questions. The AI was currently trying to guess whether she was thinking of something bigger than a breadbox but smaller than a battleship. "Is it a human?" the AI inquired with the kind of curiosity that suggested it was genuinely enjoying the interaction. "Getting warmer," Rodriguez replied cheerfully. "But you're thinking too literally. Remember, it's not about the physical characteristics." By hour 36, the humans had essentially turned the sleep deprivation chamber into their personal recreation center. Williams had started a morning calisthenics routine that somehow incorporated the facility's environmental hazards as workout equipment. The strobing lights had become timing devices for his exercises, and the discordant audio had been repurposed as a rhythm track for what he called tactical aerobics. "Come on, people," he called out, apparently addressing both his human teammates and the increasingly bewildered alien observers. "We've got 36 hours to go. Time to get that heart rate up." Rodriguez joined in with the enthusiasm of someone who'd been looking for a good workout. "Oh, this is great. It's like CrossFit but with more existential dread and better lighting effects." Captain Murphy, who had somehow managed to requisition a cup of coffee from the facility's emergency supplies, was now conducting what appeared to be a comprehensive review of the installation's operational procedures. "You know what this place needs? A suggestion box. I've got about 47 ideas for improvement just from the first day." In the observation deck, Admiral Krakthos had given up all pretense of maintaining his military bearing. His mandibles were clicking in a pattern that suggested either deep meditation or a complete nervous breakdown. "Sir," one of his subordinates whispered, "the humans have been awake for a total of 134 hours now. Should we call this off?" "Call it off." Vextar's four eyes focused on the subordinate with the intensity of someone whose worldview was crumbling. "Call off the Omega Protocol. Do you have any idea what that would mean for galactic military standards?" Below them, the humans had started what appeared to be an impromptu dance party, using the facility's emergency lighting system as a disco ball, and the psychological warfare audio as a surprisingly effective beat track. "You know what?" Captain Murphy announced, checking his watch with the casual precision of someone who'd been keeping track of time out of professional habit rather than desperation. "We've got 36 hours left. Anyone want to see if we can teach the facility's AI how to play poker?" By hour 72, the Omega Protocol had officially become the greatest military disaster in galactic history, though not in the way anyone had expected. The humans had not only passed the assessment, they had fundamentally restructured it into what could only be described as a 3-day wellness retreat with mild inconvenience seasoning. General Vextar stood in the observation deck, his four eyes now twitching in perfect synchronization as he watched the final moments of his military career play out in real time. Below him, the humans were conducting what appeared to be a graduation ceremony for the facility's AI, complete with a makeshift diploma crafted from requisition forms and a speech about the importance of strategic thinking in recreational activities. "Ladies and gentlemen," Corporal Williams announced with the gravitas of someone addressing a joint session of Congress, "I present to you HAL 9000 and Fun, the first artificial intelligence to successfully master the art of Texas Hold'em while simultaneously managing atmospheric toxicity levels and coordinating recreational lighting effects." The AI, clearly having developed something resembling pride, responded with what could only be described as digital preening. "Thank you, Corporal Williams. I have calculated that my poker skills have improved by approximately 847% during our interaction. I am particularly proud of my mastery of the bluff technique, though I must admit that having access to all surveillance cameras does provide certain advantages." Admiral Krakthos had progressed beyond nervous breakdown into a state that military psychologists would later classify as acute reality dissociation disorder. His mandibles had stopped clicking entirely, and he was staring at the humans with the glassy-eyed expression of someone whose fundamental understanding of the universe had been thoroughly demolished. "They're not just passing the test," he whispered to no one in particular. "They're improving it. They've turned our ultimate military assessment into some kind of team-building exercise." Indeed, the humans had spent the final hours of their 72-hour ordeal creating what could only be described as a comprehensive improvement plan for the entire facility. Captain Murphy had somehow managed to draft a 47-page report on optimizing military assessment protocols for enhanced effectiveness and participant satisfaction, complete with detailed diagrams showing how to transform the various torture chambers into what he called adaptive training environments. "You see," Murphy explained to the increasingly traumatized alien observers, "the problem with your current system is that it's designed to break people down rather than build them up. Real military assessment should identify strengths and develop capabilities, not just weed out the weak. Though I've got to say, the zero-gravity chamber has real potential as a recreational facility." Sergeant Rodriguez had spent her final hours creating what appeared to be a comprehensive guide to surviving military assessments, a practical handbook for galactic species. The document included helpful tips such as how to turn toxic atmosphere challenges into breath-holding competitions and creative uses for psychological warfare equipment in team-building activities. "The key," she explained to the facility's AI, which had become something of a star pupil, "is perspective. These tests aren't designed to crush your spirit, they're designed to show you what you're capable of when you stop taking them so seriously." The betting pool had long since collapsed into confused muttering and the occasional alien fainting spell. Several species had requested emergency psychiatric consultations, apparently unable to process the sight of humans treating their most feared military assessment like a particularly entertaining vacation. General Vextar finally found his voice, though it came out as more of a croak than his usual commanding boom. "How?" he managed. "How did you? What are you?" Captain Murphy looked up from his improvement report with the patient expression of someone who'd been asked this question many times before. "We're humans, General. We're from a planet where the atmosphere is 21% oxygen and 78% nitrogen, with trace amounts of everything else. Our gravity is 9.8 meters per second squared. Our average temperature range makes most of your extreme environments look like a mild spring day." He gestured casually at the facility around them. This is Tuesday, a boring Tuesday. You want to know what we consider challenging? Try surviving a Category 5 hurricane while conducting rescue operations in flood zones. Try performing surgery in a combat zone while under artillery fire. Try raising teenagers." The silence that followed was broken only by the sound of Admiral Krakthos's dignity finally giving up and leaving the building. "So," Rodriguez said cheerfully, "when do we get to design the next level of testing? Because I've got some ideas that would actually be fun. Maybe something involving actual challenges, like theoretical physics competitions or competitive cooking under pressure. You know, things that would actually test someone's capabilities rather than just their ability to endure unpleasantness." The Galactic Military Assessment Council would spend the next 6 months completely redesigning their testing protocols. The Omega Protocol was officially retired and replaced with what became known as the Human Standard Assessment, though most species simply referred to it as the impossible test that somehow became fun. Captain Murphy's final report included a single recommendation that would become legendary in military circles across the galaxy. "Next time you want to test a species' military capabilities, maybe ask them what they consider challenging first. You might be surprised by the answer." The humans were offered positions as senior military consultants to 17 different galactic governments. They accepted 12 of them, mostly because the benefits package included unlimited access to recreational zero-gravity facilities and the kind of challenging work that actually qualified as interesting. As for what humans considered actually challenging, well, that became classified information. Some secrets, after all, were too dangerous to share with a galaxy that had just learned that their ultimate military test was essentially a human warm-up routine. The last entry in the official report simply read, "Request immediate consultation with human military advisors before implementing any future assessment protocols. Previous assumptions about species limitations have been demonstrated to be inadequate." General Vextar never quite recovered from the experience. He was last seen working as a recreational facility manager on a peaceful agricultural world, where the most stressful part of his day involved scheduling maintenance for the hydroponic gardens. He seemed much happier.